What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Phil Perry alongside. Phil, say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
Nicely done. I want you to listen to something for all of you who have an issue with the emergence of Alex Van Pelt as the Patriots offensive coordinator. This is Drew Bledsoe, who I think has some similarities in terms of the arc of what the Patriots are expecting to Drake Maye. Drew?
One thing that he has that's very, very significant going for him is Alex Van Pelt. So Alex was we were together in Buffalo for a few years, and no disrespect to Zoe. Alex was, from a backup standpoint, he was the one that had the best football mind, and he also has just this incredibly calm demeanor. He played quarterback in the league for a decade, and he's 6 foot and chubby. So obviously he had to win with his brain, otherwise. And so I really think that Alex is one of those special, quarterback whisperer kind of dudes that's really going to help him. So I think that they'll take all factors into account. What's our best chance to win right now, but also, what's best for this kid's long-term future and therefore the future of the franchise in making those decisions.
Yeah, it was there's an article this morning. I'm glad you brought him up because the new OC, so everybody knows, he's allegedly he's the lead guy. It's going to be like him and Drake Maye hand in hand. And I love that we're getting the Drew Bledsoe cosign of that as being a huge deal.
I did when Alex was at the Bengals and he was at the Browns. Mm-hmm. When he was with the Browns during COVID, they were doing all these Zoom meetings, and he texted me, he goes, "Dude, I'm running out of material for these Zoom meetings. Would you come on and do, and just sit in my quarterback meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And the one thing I told him, it was Baker Mayfield and a bunch of those guys. And I go, "Guys, look, you have to listen to this guy because he played a decade as an NFL quarterback, and look at him." It was not because of his physical ability, but he's a great guy and a really brilliant football mind, and he's I believe that he'll find a way even with the limited weapons they have, he'll find a way to get them moving.
All right, that's Drew talking to Kay Adams, longtime friend of the program, former Quick Slants co-host. Phil, the ball of clay that is Drake Maye, we've had it amplified that Alex Van Pelt is the guy. Before I let you talk, here's Mayo from the weekend talking about Alex Van Pelt and his role.
Is there a primary person who'll be kind of in the ear of Drake, and Joe? Is it T.C. McCartney? Is it Alex?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, across the league, most offensive coordinators, they interact with the quarterback, the starting quarterback for the most part. We do have a group of coaches that have quarterback backgrounds, but I would say overall it'd be AVP as far as that lead guy.
Phil, thoughts on Drew and Jawad?
Yeah, this aligns with what we have heard for some time about Alex Van Pelt. I'm talking about what Drew Bledsoe had to say about Van Pelt, is that this guy knows quarterbacking. He does. He spent a lot of time in the league, obviously. And Drew is very, very kindly pointing out it wasn't because of his physical skill set. So the guy has a brain for the position that allowed him to hang out in the league for a long, long time. He has now been coaching for a long, long time. He's coached some really good players. He's coached some not great players, but he's coached Aaron Rodgers. He was a quarterback's coach for Green Bay. He's a quarterback's coach in Cincinnati. This was pre-Joe Burrow during the Andy Dalton era, but Andy Dalton was a capable guy for some time there. And so, and then we see what he did last year, which I think most people know by now, with all of the starting quarterbacks they had in Cleveland and allowing that team to find its way to the postseason at the end there, especially with Joe Flacco. So he knows what he's doing. And that's what everyone will tell you on the record, Tom, off the record. There are some questions, and I've said this since the day they hired him. There are some questions about how he will coordinate the offense, especially on game day. What is he like as a play caller? He's only done it very briefly in a couple of instances. It did it all the way back in 2009, sort of on an emergency basis. So those won't be answered until he actually does it. But when it comes to teaching a guy the fundamentals on how to play the position, you should feel pretty good about what the Patriots have in Alex Van Pelt if you're a Patriots fan.
I'll say this too with Van Pelt. I was relieved when the Patriots hired him as opposed to Nick Caley or Shane Waldron. And the reason was you had a first-year head coach in Mayo, DeMarcus Covington is elevating to being the new DC. It's a young staff. There are myriad personalities and people there. I think that having an older coach is conducive to success. And this was prior to Ben McAdoo joining the staff. So I thought it was great. Now, continually, I'll hear Felger criticize Van Pelt and be dubious of his ability because he's never been a play caller and he's just been kind of a title holder as an OC. And I continue to say, he's like, well, nobody in the league wanted him. He was fired. He's on the, this is Mike. Somebody else is paying him. No surprise, cheap Patriots, but that's why he's here. That's why he's here. Nobody wanted him. To which I'll say, then why does everyone continue to say how good he is? Well, then why didn't anyone hire him? Mike, are you telling me that everybody in the league knows what the fuck they're doing in the first place? I don't think so. That's why they're continually firing people and replacing people. And guys are bouncing from team to team to team, like a Nathaniel Hackett, for instance, who can't seem to get out of his own way. He's going to be replaced in New York after driving the truck onto a bridge abutment in Denver. The point is, I don't trust owners or coaches to continually get it right. I'm not saying Alex Van Pelt's going to be great, but I am going to say that I'm going to reserve judgment. Phil, let's circle back to, before we get to Drake Maye, on what an offensive coordinator is. An offensive coordinator coordinates the offense. It's not just about X's and O's and coming up with a triple reverse or setting things up on game day with play calling. It's coordinating running game so that it dovetails neatly with passing game. It's coordinating looks. It's coordinating wide receiver routes, tight end routes, running backs, protections, all of that. That's what it comes down to. People miss the point on coordinators and think it's merely play calling. Phil, help me on that before we get to Drake.
Oh, no, it's more than play calling. You do have to make sure you have a plan, not only on a week-to-week basis, but for an entire season as to how you're going to develop things, how you're going to install things, how things marry up together, run game, pass game. What are we going to be about? Are we going to be more spread? Are we going to be more shotgun? Are we going to be more under center than is the norm for the rest of the league? What kind of run game are we going to have? Are we going to be a zone team? Are we going to be a gap team? We're going to be using all sorts of different various run calls. We're going to do a little bit of both because that's what our personnel dictates. I think that's to me the most interesting thing about that job is you are almost as much an evaluator of talent. You have to be of your own talent as you are a coach. You have to understand what your players do well and then mold your offense to. That's what every coordinator in the league has to do. All these guys, they have systems, they have schemes, they have backgrounds, certain areas in which they are experts, but you better, whatever you do, it better fit the players that you have. And that may change over the course of time based on injuries and a lot of other things, availability of certain players. So he has to be able to show that he can do that to be able to mold this offense to the people that he has available to him. Yeah,
to me, play calling, certainly it's about the game. It's about scoring. That's the essence of what you're taking the field for. So it's got its place. But I don't think the primacy of people thinking that it's the most important thing, and that's how you evaluate an offensive coordinator is, look, sometimes a team is going to make head-scratching calls or decisions, and it might be to protect an area of their offense that sucks. Like Bill O'Brien's a good play caller. Bill O'Brien's a great offensive coordinator. Bill O'Brien is standing there with a toolbox that got raided. He's just, what am I supposed to use here? Pulls out a ratchet, the top falls off. I mean, nothing worked. So a worker's only as good as his tools. Speaking of which, sometimes you got to build your tools. The ball of clay that is Drake Maye. Again, it's interesting to hear Mayo say over the weekend that generally in the league, the offensive coordinator works with the starter. We knew that, but he said that in conjunction with Maye. But Maye isn't the starty. Or is he? Is he the starty?
No, I don't think so. I think this is going to be a legitimate competition. They're going to legitimately use training camp as an opportunity to evaluate these guys. My guess is they're assuming that Jacoby Brissett is going to perform better in camp. And it's going to make their decision easy for them. And they're going to allow Drake Maye to learn and develop behind the scenes. And whether it's a full season or half a season or 3/4 of a season, I don't know. But one additional thing we can say, whether it's Alex Van Pelt or Ben McAdoo, they both come from the same school of quarterback coaching, which is fundamentals matter. They are going to be doing this Mike McCarthy quarterback school thing with all of their quarterbacks, I'm sure. The rookies in particular, they're going to get some really intensive footwork training. I think the throwing motion is going to get a tweak here or there for both quarterbacks, but for Maye especially. These guys care about that stuff. This is not just, and I know there are coordinators who sort of, by the time the season rolls around, Tom, there's so much to be done in terms of game planning and trying to score points and making sure you're on top of everything, you know, install week to week, game plan plays, et cetera, that by the time you get to the regular season, for some guys at least, there's not a ton of fundamental work happening. You may do some when you're warming up and at the beginning of practice every day, and just to make sure you're staying on top of that stuff as much as you can. I think there's going to be more of that here because of the quarterback who's here and how young he is and the kind of work that he needs, but also because of the backgrounds that these guys have. They very much believe in the importance of quarterback fundamentals, and I think we're going to see that on a day-to-day basis when we're out here for training camp.
There is a massive coaching staff. Here's the coaches. This is the coaches on the roster, folks, for you guys who are watching this on YouTube. Let me just roll through just a few of them. Just offense, John. You got Alex Van Pelt, OC, Bob Bicknell, tight ends, Taylor Embry, running backs, Tyler Hughes, wideouts, Robert Kugler, assistant offensive line, Ben McAdoo, senior offensive assistant, Michael McCarthy, offensive coaching assistant, T.C. McCartney, quarterbacks, Scott Peters, offensive line, Tom Quinn, assistant special teams, Evan Rothstein, assistant quarterbacks. I did make a mistake and put an assistant special teams coach in there. Taekwon Underwood, assistant wideouts, Omar Young, offensive coaching assistant. Troy Brown is now in charge of skill development and kick and punt returners. That's a lot of offensive coaches. That's Evan Rothstein, Ben McAdoo, Alex Van Pelt, T.C. McCartney, all on the quarterbacks. That means you got a lot of people who are going to be able to devote themselves to Drake Maye. And because of that, I think the time devoted to Drake Maye is going to announce to this group and to the Patriots coaching staff in general that he's not ready. That he is going to take development that stretches into the season before he's ready to be unveiled. And I think that's the way to go. I don't think that Maye will beat Brissett out by the end of August. I think he may have better days, but I don't think he's going to be more consistent, more accurate, or more ready to lead than Jacoby Brissett. And I would put Jacoby Brissett at about -800 to be the opening day starter. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I like to equate starting Drake Maye, Phil, to taking a left into traffic. You might be able to get out, but why? There's nobody coming behind that car who's approaching from the left. And there's really nobody coming from the right. There is no traffic either way. Let that car go. What's the rush? So you have to wait a little bit. You'll be okay. Phil.
I think the major difference there is no one's going to die if Drake Maye starts at quarterback. You had to think about that one. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And
I mean, how many car accidents are fatal?
You're probably right in that Jacoby Brissett's going to start. And I think, it's interesting reading the reactions and hearing the reactions to rookie minicamp that you and others had. I think they've already started with the fundamental stuff that they're trying to drill into Drake Maye's brain. And I know the word you used was robotic. And even from the videos that I could see, I know what you're saying. And I think
good because I didn't really compare notes with anyone. Sometimes we talk on the hill. I didn't have you there to compare notes with.
Yeah, I think there were just, again, in the short samples that I saw, there were very clearly moments where it looked like he was trying to have all his cleats in the ground, feet firmly planted on the turf to, execute whatever they're asking him to execute. And I know just from listening to quarterbacks over the years, they don't love, a lot of coaches and ex-players and current players. You're not supposed to be like super toesy back there bouncing around on the balls of your feet, calm feet. You want to be athletic, but you want to have your base solidly under you. It looked like that's something that he was trying to do. So I think that's good. It might look a little robotic at times. The entire training camp might represent, Tom, for him in his overall development. This is a kid who played 3 sports. This is a kid who missed his senior season of high school because of COVID. Like, he needs time, and it might look like he's taking a step back before he can take a step forward, because I think there's going to be significant tweakage going on with the guy. So like, if you asked a pitcher to change his throwing motion, or you asked a hitter to change his swing because you don't think it's right for, and those might be drastic examples, but I'm just trying to think of other sports that people that are listening.
But it's good. I think that's a good example. Golf, whatever.
Yeah,
Even
right. It might suck for a little while, but at the end of the day, you're hoping that it pays dividends. And I'm thinking
gotta
back
make it
to
second nature.
even somebody like Aaron Rodgers. He had a lot of fundamental throwing motion work. He was coming from that Jeff Tedford, like, talk about robotic, right? Like, all these guys, he wanted them to throw the same. They were very tight. And it took him years. I mean, he had preseasons where people in Green Bay were wondering if this guy was ever going to pan out. Years before they felt comfortable with him as a player. So I don't think that's going to happen with Drake Maye. And I think he's already, like, I think his ability, his ability alone is probably good enough to at some point start as he learns defenses and he's able to read things and he understands offense. But I think they're going to try to do more with him in order to get the most out of him within the next couple of years.
And that's what's interesting about the Josh Allen comp. He's not as good as Josh Allen. He's not as fast. He's not as big. He's not as strong. His arm's not as good. Josh Allen had that elite, unique, unicorn level athleticism and arm strength that allowed him to extract himself from problems, and actually might have retarded his progress a little bit in terms of the things that Drake Maye is going to work on. I think it's going to be important that Drake Maye never use Josh Allen as a comp, ever, because I don't think Josh Allen finished everything he was being asked to do. And we saw that with the regression under Ken Dorsey. If he had graduated from that class of becoming a polished, fully polished, like elite polished, I'm not saying he's not an all-pro level player, then there wouldn't be the variations in his performance that we see right now. I think he could self-diagnose a little bit better. Again, my problem with Josh Allen is his tendencies are very easy to see, and it is to drift right, use your arm, throw darts. And they've got to get away from, he's got to get away from that. But it's the same tendency that we all have whenever we are doing something that I'm going to do what I know. I'm going to do what I've seen work. So that's what he does. But I think Drake Maye needs to get the PhD, or at least the master's. He's good. He's very good. How good he'll be is dependent upon what those guys do with the ball of clay.
And again, I just find the backgrounds of both McAdoo and Van Pelt interesting, and I want to try to dig a little bit deeper into this. But there's this whole quarterback school thing that they know very well in Dallas. They've heard of it and know it well in Green Bay. This is just part of the offseason for these guys. And I think we're going to learn about it here this year. Because there are going to be things that we see with the quarterbacks, whether it's rookie minicamp or OTAs or mandatory minicamp, that we haven't seen. And maybe we'll hear from the young quarterbacks or Jacoby Brissett himself talk about this quarterback school. It's going to be sort of a fun thing to track. What are they learning? How are they trying to learn it? And how much are these guys actually progressing? Can we see it in real time? Because we know they're getting a lot of intensive training behind the scenes.
Phil,
I pulled up a video, Tom, and I'm in the middle of watching this 1 hour, 15-minute Mike McCarthy quarterback, what to look for in a QB. Mike McCarthy, Green Bay Packers.
Really?
somebody football junkie posted this years ago. I think it's from just after Mike McCarthy took the head coaching job in Green Bay. But I'm 15 minutes into this thing, Tom, and he hasn't gotten past the 5-step drop up from behind center. He spends about 5 minutes talking about the first step you take from under center and how much ground you're supposed to make up with that very first step, and how your hips are supposed to open, and how that sets you up for the top of your drop. Like the minute details that he's going over on something very simple, we would think, like taking the snap from center and getting away from center so that you can eventually get to where you need to go. That's the kind of stuff that Drake Maye is going to be hearing that he's probably, I think it's fair to say, has never heard before.
No,
so
and
how he takes it all in is interesting to me.
Great question by our buddy Taylor Kyles on Saturday. A nuance that most of us wouldn't pick up on. I think he was calling it a left foot up stance that May was trying to master. So it's like, again, it's like changing your grip in golf, or your batting stance, or where you hold your hands pitching, or whether you go up, all that stuff. So it's very interesting. And go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, well, the left foot forward, I've talked to coaches who have been in systems where they teach that too. And it's very traditional sort of West Coast thing. And it's just supposed to set the quarterbacks up so that their footwork helps take them through the progressions. When you hit this step, you're looking at this option. When you take your hitch up, then you're on to this option. And it's all based on timing and rhythm. And it's that left foot forward thing that Van Pelt and, Van Pelt specifically is a believer in. And so, Drake Maye's a good athlete. If he's not used to it, my guess is he'll get comfortable with it relatively quickly. But, they've done it at a variety of different pro programs, and you can just Google that and search it. And you have different quarterbacks that are trying to get used to it over the course of the last few years in the NFL. And it's not a huge thing, but it is indicative of what kind of offense they want to run and what that will be founded in, which is those West Coast principles, which, the routes and the footwork of the quarterback are very, very tied together. And if you can get it right, it should eventually make Drake Maye's job in terms of getting through his progressions a little bit easier. But it's just getting over that initial hump of, this feels I'm used to having an open stance. Now I'm a little bit closed, or, vice versa, that he has to get used to.
Yeah. And it was interesting to hear May that the rhythm of the drop, exactly what you're talking about, where you are and timing it up with the receivers. So where they are in their routes, because look, there's not a million routes. People like to act like this is absolute rocket science. It's not. There's only so many things you can do. And it's just how efficiently you do them. Meanwhile, skipping on from the quarterbacks, let's talk about the schedule, which will be released Wednesday night, 8:00 is when it drops. We're going to get so many games prior to home games. Other than the normal ones, we got Texans, Colts, Rams, Seahawks, and Chargers outside the division. Away games outside the division. You folks got trips to Arizona, Jacksonville, San Fran, Tennessee, Cincy, and Chicago. So I'd say that this is a C. If I was calling it a 1 to 10, I'd call this about a 3 or a 4 for schedules for my friends out there who like to travel. I mean, Arizona is the only one I'd really like to do in Tennessee. I'm not really interested. I mean, Chicago, Cincy, definitely not. Jacksonville, definitely not. I like to play golf. I don't want to go to San Francisco / San Jose. Not a good schedule. Additionally, Phil, I don't know if the Patriots are going to be on Sunday Night Football. What's the marquee game? They might be getting Jaguars treatment this year. They might be getting a Thursday and a Monday, and you could suck it after that.
Yeah, I mean, they might actually get the Jaguars in London. That is the ultimate Jaguars treatment, isn't it? You get the 9 a.m. game in London against Jacksonville. I could very much see that happening. The marquee game, there is no marquee game. The marquee games would be the late season divisional games if the Patriots are somehow still in contention, which the league is always good about doing. I don't know what the schedule is going to say in terms of when they play Buffalo, Miami, New York in December, but my guess is they see all three of those teams in either, December or January. And so those could end up being the closest thing we get to a marquee game. I mean, they play some good teams, Tom, but if we're not expecting the Patriots to be a great team, like who cares about, the Texans game or the Rams game or the Niners game? Like, I don't know.
Talking to Taylor Kyles, and he said, well, maybe they try and match up Drake Maye against Caleb Williams, Patriots, Chicago. I'm like, nobody cares. Nobody cares about Drake Maye. He's the third best quarterback taken in the draft. He might not even start.
But he is the best. But he's the best thing that the Patriots have to offer as a franchise, right?
It is, no doubt. But look at the come down from Bill Belichick, first from Tom Brady, then from Bill Belichick to recognizability, now to Drake Maye. Right. I mean, Drake Maye is still going to be able to walk down the street pretty frequently in Massachusetts for a while without having universal recognition. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
I actually don't hate I don't hate Taylor's point. If they have a week 8 bye, Tom, and there's a week 9 Monday Night Football opening, and there's no other good options for the NFL schedule makers, then do they? Then is it okay? Well, this might be where Drake Maye actually makes his first start, coming off a bye against Caleb Williams. That would be kind of fun.
This is where you could 1,000,000% see the alteration in ownership involvement relative to the football team, as opposed to Bill. Is there any chance we're going to start him coming? We would love to get on television nationally. We'd take it a beating. I don't think so. We're not going to do it. You sure? Pretty sure. Because if you do, I'd love to be able to give him a high sign that he's going to be out there. Right? I 1,000,000% would never. I believe it, that the Crafts are not orchestrating, puppeteering, marionetting it in any way at all, except for the same way your kids show up with a towel over their shoulder and a bathing suit on and say, is it time to go to the beach yet? No, it's not. You're disappointing them. So every time Robert or anybody in the organization with sway walks in and says, is it ready yet? You say, well, okay. How long? That's the way it gets exercised. So when the Patriots end up with 2 primetime games Wednesday, and again, I might be dead wrong. And if I am, come at me, bruvs. Come at me.
He wants the smoke.
I want all the smoke. I want all the smoke. Give me all the smoke. This is going to be quick. Best offensive coordinators in the AFC East. Nathaniel Hackett, as I said, is on watch. The Jets actually tried to replace him with an offensive overlord. He was going to retain his title. That's reported on me. I saw that on PFT yesterday. Who's the best offensive coordinator in the AFC East? Who has the best offensive coaching setup?
Mike McDaniel in Miami. That to me is the pretty easy answer right away, because we've seen it. We've seen the creativity, how he uses the speed that they have. Again, he's adjusting to the personnel that they have. Very different personnel in Miami than what they had in San Francisco when Mike McDaniel was last there. But now he's got all these, out motions. Remember that motion that was driving everybody bananas early last year? And
not the orbit,
but the motion from the slot straight. I mean, the Patriots couldn't figure it out, from the slot straight out toward the sideline as the ball's being snapped and up the field.
Again,
they use that all year long.
It's astounding. And then, what a genius. How could no one ever think of that before? Anyway.
So he's probably not.
After that, right? So McDaniel is an easy one. After that, where's it go? Could the Patriots have the second best offensive coaching staff in the division?
Boy, I don't know. That might be
it's
a
open.
Fair argument to be made there. I mean, how many of those guys could take Joe Flacco and get him into the playoffs last year?
That position is vacant right now.
Yeah. I mean, you feel good about Ken Dorsey. You feel good about Nathaniel Hackett doing what Van Pelt did last year with the Browns. That, I guess, would be the question. The staff in Buffalo will always look better than it probably is because of Josh Allen. And maybe the staff in New York will all of a sudden look like a bunch of geniuses because Aaron Rodgers is back on the field and playing well. But I think the evidence that we've seen from how those guys work with other players is not all that impressive. So I think you're right. I think it's sort of like a 3-horse race for that second spot in the division.
Currently vacant.
Yeah.
Last one for today. this just occurred to me because I was reading a story about Luke McCaffrey, and I found myself pining for him. Which wideout will make you say, regarding the selection of Ja'Lynn Polk, I wish we had ... Or will Ja'Lynn Polk be the player that other teams regret missing on? Like the Terry McLaurin, the Deebo Samuel, the DK Metcalf of the draft. Who's it going to be? Or are the Patriots going to have gotten this one right? I'm Luke McCaffrey, just to say that. If it was Drake Maye and Luke McCaffrey, I mean, my perfect would have been the Irish combo of JJ McCarthy and Luke McCaffrey. That was my dream combo. You know,
yeah,
pasty,
spoken like a true
pasty
Pembrokian.
Yeah.
It's a good question on Polk. I've spoken to so many people that I trust who know receiver play, both in the league and in media. You know, we had Field Yates on Next Pats recently. We had Connor Rogers does a great job. You know, covers the Jets, but also does league-wide stuff for NBC Sports on the draft. These guys love Ja'Lynn Polk, love him. Like they think he's, you know, outside of those top 3 receivers that were taken, they think he's right in that tier right below those guys that are universally considered future All-Pros. So
Field loved him. You can listen to
Field loved him. Connor loved him too. And I know there are league people, there are offensive coordinators who love this guy, even though he's not the best athlete. Though I think we've gone almost a little too far, Tom.
I know
like how unathletic he is. I mean, if you look at his little spider chart on mockdraftable.com, which I love, you know, he's almost 6'1.5", 200 pounds. So he's got legitimate size, big hands, almost 10 inches. His 10-yard split, 1.52, was 76th percentile for a guy who's got pretty good size. That's impressive to me. The 40 was not great, but it wasn't prohibitive in terms of thinking about this guy in the second round.
What's the number again?
His 40 was 4.52, which is 43rd percentile. But then the vertical's 37.5 at 75th percentile. The broad jump is 10 feet 9, which is 88th percentile. So he's got like good size and legitimate explosiveness.
And speed to me, 4.52 or 4.48 or 4.43. I mean, we're talking a tenth of a second.
I think the reason why people do look at it, and I think it is legitimate, is
it's always been a good number, but
he was not a burner in college. And so it was like so 4.52, people actually were kind of like surprised that he ran that fast because that wasn't his game. Even though they threw the ball down the field a ton, he wasn't consistently running by people at Washington. I mean, Devontae Adams was a 4.56 guy, but had the impressive vertical, was 39.5, 89th percentile in the vertical, and had a pretty good, it was basically the same 10-yard split for a guy who's 6'1", over 200 pounds. So like, could he be a Devontae Adams kind of athlete? I think there's the potential for that. Now, Devontae Adams, part of what makes him so great is the route running and the competitiveness at the catch point, and the release package is like the best.
He's a little bigger, right?
He's 6'1". He's actually a little shorter, but he's a little heavier. So Polk is, what was Polk for the weight? Polk was, so he's almost 10 pounds heavier coming out of college, Adams, than Polk. Polk was 203, Adams was 212. But not incredibly dissimilar in terms of their size and athletic profiles.
Yeah,
and
when you talk about that, because Devontae Adams is a high pointing guy. So 88th percentile with the
vertical or the broad. Yeah, I mean, and I liked, you tell me, but what you saw of Polk, what I sort of liked from some of the videos I saw, and listen, the routes on air, whatever, like it's a very small sample. He does look like a guy who can get low, change direction. I saw some good like flexibility in his hips and ankles, and I'm not a scout, but like, you know, he's 6'1", 6'1.5", 200 pounds, and he can like get low and turn the corner. And we didn't get agility times from him before the draft, but I wonder if we had, if they would have been, you know, better than people think.
Yeah, can you throttle down? Because what we had a real good chance to watch the other day were little digs, little 9 back to 7 inside moves, and just get your hands up and then again turn after you've made the catch and turn it up. He did. He got low. He gets low, gets, the left foot if he's on the left side planted and digs back. Good body control. But I continue to say Tyquan Thornton always looked the part in practice. I just don't get it. Think he'll get released. Now, let's do that another time. Is there anybody that the Patriots are going to regret having passed on at the wide receiver position, or do you think that they're going to end up saying, we got the guy we wanted, we got the guy we needed, we did a good job?
I certainly don't think they'll be saying it in such a creepy fashion. That was incredible work by you. Here's the thing. Let's be realistic about it. I don't think he was the guy they wanted necessarily. I think of the guys who were left at 34, I do think he was the guy they wanted.
They definitely didn't want Luke McCaffrey, though.
I think there were a couple guys ahead of him that they really wanted. Now, Luke McCaffrey ended up going in the 3rd or 4th round.
Am I got the wrong guy?
Oh,
Who'd the Chargers take?
Yeah, the Chargers took Ladd McConkey. Is that who you've been talking about this whole time? For the people who are just listening, Tom has his head in his hands, and he's just, hello, darkness, my old friend.
That guy.
You've been talking about Ladd McConkey this whole time. I was getting ready to give you a lot of credit for being a Luke McCaffrey guy, because I was sort of a Luke McCaffrey guy.
I like him too.
He was one of only 3 prototypical Patriots this year. He checked every single box along with Jalen McMillan, Ja'Lynn Polk's teammate at Washington, who I liked. I thought he was devalued. He played hurt last year. It wouldn't stun me if he ends up having a really good career with the Bucs.
How about me just being unable to tell him apart as an Irish guy? I just get there. I don't know. LMC. I just can't. I don't know.
Yeah, they all look the same, I guess, huh, Tom?
Apparently. We kind of do. We kind of do.
No, so here's the thing. McCaffrey is a bigger individual, not by a ton, but he's 6'2", 198. Ladd is 5'11", 186.
He's just a lad. He's just a lad.
I don't think it's going to be Ladd, but it could be, because the quarterback's so good there. If he becomes Herbert's security blanket, maybe he's like a 90 catch guy in a couple of years.
It's funny too, because when you think about, okay, well, what's the best app for that? If you're talking about Ladd McConkey, short area specialist, great route runner with Drake Maye, or do you want huge catch radius, great hands, huge hands, great athlete, Ja'Lynn Polk down the middle? What's Drake Maye going to be better at? The down the middle throws for 15 to 25 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. Poor lad, not Luke. Wouldn't have known whether to shit or go blind with some of the stuff that was coming at him. Yeah, that was way too high. I mean, we'll try it again, but that was high. I mean, that was the obvious thing with Drake Maye the other day. It's just balls are complete, balls are caught, balls are not on the right part of the body. They're like, okay. I'm still a little rattled.
That's okay. If I had to guess, a receiver who'd be taken after.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to actually answer the question. I would be talking about it for 10 minutes. A receiver who's been taken after Ja'Lynn Polk that will have the best career will be. I love Jalen McMillan. I'm going to go with Roman Wilson. Let's go with Roman.
I like him. Ooh.
I liked him. And he went to
the
Pittsburgh,
Michigan guy, right?
And they usually, and then he went to Pittsburgh, and they usually know what they're doing with the receivers there. And I don't know who's throwing him the ball there, but I think he's a pretty good player. I don't think he was great for what the Patriots needed. I like that they got somebody with a little bit more size, but Roman Wilson's a guy who maybe a couple years from now we're saying, man, can you believe that guy ended up going? I think
just like Tyler Lockett.
Where did he go?
I don't know. All right, I'm hanging up. I actually have to use the restroom.
Okay. I'm going to go research receivers who have already been drafted.
Okay, bye.